Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Suited Kings podcast. We are 1 week out.
One week.
Yeah, from the World Series of Poker. As we're recording, it'll literally be a week until I know Max and I are playing.
Yep.
Yeah. We do have a special guest here today, and he's
Two-timer.
two-timer. Yeah, he was actually our first guest on the podcast, and appropriately, he is the reigning World Series of Poker Player of the Year. So, Ian, thanks for joining us today.
Welcome back, buddy.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. So Ian, 1 week from today, we'll all be traveling across the great desert in search of glory and fame. I know last year you had found such things. What's his life been like for you since that's happened?
I guess my life hasn't changed too much. I've still been kind of just sticking to my roots.
Good.
I guess the only difference now is I'm playing potentially some bigger tournaments this summer. So
That's perfect, man. And what kind of I'm curious, having such a title, a prestigious title behind your name, I'm assuming you're now associating with some bigger names. Have you met any new acquaintances, people that maybe you looked up to before, maybe not known who you were, that you now are, conversate with, things like that? Anything like that change?
I guess people just kind of know who I am, which is different. But yeah, just talking poker with a few different people. There's one guy I've been studying with, trading mixed game coaching for, and I'm giving him NL coaching and yes, things like that pretty much.
So you're going to be hopping in the mixed game streets, it sounds like, this year.
Yeah, I'll be in at least the low stakes mixed games. I don't think I'm going to be hopping in any 10Ks. I'm not ready for that yet, but at least be able to play a few more tournaments this summer.
And you're feeling confident in those?
It's tough to say until I'm actually in there playing, but
Okay.
I've been playing some like low to mid stakes cash and stuff, and that's been going okay. So, we'll see how it goes in the tournaments. Obviously, tournament format will be much different, but
Okay.
Definitely. And that actually leads to one of the questions that one of our Discord members, I think this was Chris Jones who said it. He was wondering if you are going to go into this summer, really going for a back-to-back player of the year, or if you're just going to see how things go.
I think more along the lines of see how things go. I'm definitely going to be playing for it, but it's going to be tough to kind of miss some of the good stuff at Win and Venetian this summer, I think. So, yeah, I don't know. But I'm mostly going to be playing WSOP, I think, is the answer for now.
Awesome, man. And so our topic today is, this isn't going to be a second interview with you. It's more of going to be a study session for people to listen to.
It's our last WSOP Prep episode.
Yeah. So this is our fifth and final WSOP Prep episode on our podcast. And like we said, it's fitting to have you on here. Before we get in, I think our topic today is going to be discussing Final Table ICM play. This is the spot where all the money's on the line, all the glory's on the line, and you've been there before. So we're going to ask you some theoretical questions regarding that. But before we get into that, I'm just curious. I know the World Series of Poker has not released their online schedule yet. I'm not sure if I remember this correctly or not, but did we hear that if online was going to be counting towards Player of the Year points this year?
I'm not positive myself, but I think it counts, and that it just doesn't count for the 25K fantasy that Negreanu runs.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, and I've always been on the side of it should count. I mean, everybody has equal opportunity to play in there as well. So it's not like,
sorry to cut you off. I would say I actually don't. I think it should be separate for Player of the Year. It obviously worked out very well for me last year, but I don't know. I think it should be a separate thing, honestly.
Okay, so WSOP Online should have their own Player of the Year separate from the live poker.
Yep, I would say that would make sense.
Cool, man. Appreciate your take on that. So, the online schedule hasn't been released. I'm assuming if once that comes out, you'll be firing away in those as well as the mixed games.
Yep. Yeah, I'll be firing whatever they have there for me. So
cool. All right. Well, we'll be having more questions littered throughout the podcast, but let's get into the nitty gritty here. Wes, I think you have a scenario to start us off with here.
Yeah. We're gonna go through some questions and get your thoughts based on this. So, we got it in front of you here, but for all the listeners, I think we'll just post a screenshot of this in the Discord, so it might be easier, or if you're when you're listening to the podcast, if you can just like write down the stack sizes that I'm going to say because it's going to be a little harder to
Yeah, even if you're
follow.
driving, make sure to write these down.
Yeah, pull over. I don't care if you're, going to your best friend's wedding. Like, pull over, be late, write these down.
Yep.
Um,
Follow along.
so the stack sizes that we're going to be looking at. So this is a 9-handed final table. Small blind has 15 bigs, big blind 35, under the gun 20, under the gun plus 1 48, middle position 8 big blinds, low jack 10, hijack 4, cutoff 17, and then the button is the big stack with 66 big blinds.
And there's $22 billion up top.
Something like that. We'll give or take 500 grand, but so anyway, so we got a lot, ranging from 4 big blinds to 66. There's 3 stacks at 10 or below. There are 6 stacks with 20 big blinds or below. So there's a lot of things to consider here. And so we're just going to kind of go through a few of them. So middle position with 8 big blinds, it folds to you. How is your range here? How's your opening range going to look different than if this was a chip EV spot? And are you going to have a sizing that's not all in?
Yeah, so looking at it now, I guess 8 big blinds is the second shortest. You got that 4 big blind stack. You're going to want to play pretty tight just because of the collision potential. So basically what that means is when we fold, the hijack will put their 4 big blinds in, decently often. And then somebody will also call that 4 big blinds decently often. So in this exact spot where you have that 4 big blinds behind you, you're going to play pretty tight. It's kind of tough to play non all in. I guess you could play a min raise, and that would be kind of centered around aces and kings, and then a couple bluffs like maybe ace 9 offsuit, king jack offsuit, something along those lines. But if people know that you have to be really careful with it because people know you can really only induce the strongest hands. Then they'll just kind of put in the rest of your chips. Yeah, I guess as far as non all in goes as well, what you're gonna want to do is with your 8 big blinds, you're gonna want to make it 4 big blinds. That way, if like 2 or 3 other people go all in behind you, you can fold some of your worst hands and
Still make those ICM jumps.
So
yep, exactly.
So to clarify, you're saying we should have like that, maybe that min raise sizing with aces, kings, ace nine, a couple bluff hands.
Yep.
And then for your all ins, you shouldn't actually go all in. You should put in 4 big. So like if several bigger stacks go all in behind you, you can actually fold unless you have your actual strongest.
Yeah, because let's say you have ace jack offsuit, which is going to want to shove for 8 big blinds, regardless of the 4 big blind stack. You put in the 4 big blinds, and then now the low jack goes all in for 10, and the button calls. I mean, you're dealing with ranges that are looking very, very strong. Ace jack is just going to fold and look to ladder up at that point.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Make a couple $100 million just from folding. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
What a life that would be.
That would be it.
Cool. So then let's say under the gun 1 opens off of 48 bigs and the hijack. So the hijack with 4 big blinds. What is the hijack's jamming range going to look like here?
So just a reminder, under the gun is 48 big blinds. Hijack is 4 big blinds, but in between us, we have an 8 and a 10 big blind stack as well.
Yeah, so this spot is kind of tricky because under the gun 1 shouldn't be opening insanely wide. He has the button that covers him with 66. He's got the big blind with 35 that can, not bust him, but can hurt him quite a bit.
Yeah. And actually, before you even get to hijack, under the gun 1, how much tighter will that opening range be compared to a normal chip EV spot?
Honestly, not that much tighter because button still has to be careful against that as well. Button can't just attack it, with any 2. But yeah, I would say maybe just a touch tighter than chip EV. But yeah, the problem with hijack having 4 bigs versus this like somewhat strong opening range is they don't have fold equity. So you
Yeah.
still have to play pretty tight even though you only have 4 big blinds. You're not just sticking it in with ace-8 offsuit. You're still kind of hoping that somebody else will bust before you run out of your 4 big blinds. You're also looking. It's tough because you're not going to get very many open spots where it folds to you. Not many first in spots. But that's kind of what you're hoping for. Otherwise, you're just going to have a good hand because you won't have fold equity.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess for a range, probably something like ace 10 plus, ace 9 suited, and then maybe like king queen suited, and yeah, like sevens plus for pairs, something around there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great to point out because I feel like it's very easy with the 4 big blinds to just say, "Oh, I have a pair," or "Oh, I have an ace," like,
Mhm.
this is good enough.
Yeah, like sticking in pocket threes there for 4 big blinds, this is still going to be losing you quite a bit of money because one, you don't have now there's no opportunity for anybody to bust, and
Mhm.
two, like the under the gun range is still very strong. They're not opening, they're probably only opening like sixes plus for pairs, and everything else other than that's going to be flipping with you. So
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, that's good to know. I mean, a lot of people, like Wes said, especially when they haven't studied ICM and such, it's like when you see a pair with 4 big blinds, you're just you're like, this is the best scenario I can ask for,
yep. Yeah, and
essentially.
if it was first in, then of course we still take it because we have fold equity. But since he opened to 2 big blinds with our four, we don't have
He's
fold
never
equity now.
folding,
Yeah.
and we
Yep.
can be dominated.
Yep.
What about the hijack when folded to? What's the hijack going with?
That's the 4 big blind stack, just for listeners
Yes.
who haven't
Yeah.
stopped their car to write this down.
Um, yeah, so if it was one position earlier where like let's say the big blind instead of them having 35 bigs, which in this case they do, if they have 15, now that 4 big blinds hurts the 15 quite a bit, so I'd shove even wider.
Okay,
But yeah, into the 35, we're still gonna take like any ace, probably king 10 plus,
king 10 plus. Okay.
and then like jack 10 suited plus kind of idea. Any pair is going to go in for 4 big blinds because we still do have that like ounce of fold equity in case the big blind has 8-4 offsuit, whatever.
And are we just ripping most hands here? Or are we going to do any of that strategy like you mentioned before, where we say open 2 big blinds and then potentially fold?
That would be
Yeah, with 4,
disgusting.
you're just too short to do that. You can't like. The problem is if you make it 2 big blinds, the big blind will just call a lot, and then
Yeah.
it's you
That
want
makes
to
sense.
still
You have
have that fold
You
equity.
don't
yeah,
get the
you main
sliver of fold
this.
equity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So if
Okay.
you have 7, you make it 4, I think. But yeah, with 4, I would just put it in.
What
Okay.
if we played poker where you could just like not you didn't have to raise by single blinds? You know what I mean? You could just be like, I raise a quarter of one big.
1.1.
Yeah, I raised a
1.6.
1.2.
Um, cool.
Sorry, coffee break there. Wes's computer was about to blow up as well. I don't know if you could
Yeah, it
hear
was
that, but
heating up.
the
I don't know
thing
what's
sounded
going
like sounded like a nuke getting dropped. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Um, okay, Wes, what else you got here?
Yeah, so now let's say it folds to the cutoff. So cutoff is 17 bigs with the button and the big blind having pretty big stacks. So what is the cutoff's opening range going to look like here compared to usual? I imagine it'll be quite a bit tighter. And is there ever a world where you're jamming or doing that effective jam here with
Mhm.
17 bigs?
Yeah, so the cutoff has to be very careful opening too much because they don't have a very wide range of hands that they can stack off with. Being there's a 4, an 8, a 10, a 15, and they have 17. They're kind of in the middle. They're looking to just kind of ladder up and take down small pots here and there.
Mhm.
They will definitely play a shoving range for 17, and it'll be hands that normally would be strong enough to raise and deuce, like ace queen offsuit will probably just be a shove.
Yep.
Whereas in normal circumstances, you want to open and get somebody else to shove and call off. Um, but yeah, like I would start folding a bunch of the bottom opens that you would normally open, like Jack 10 offsuit. I wouldn't open anymore. Like Queen 10 offsuit would probably just fold. Some of the offsuit ace X I might open would fold. Like ace 7, ace 8 offsuit, ace 9 offsuit, potentially even. Pairs, some of the pairs would probably just end up going in. But yeah, it's going to be a tight opening range. Like it's kind of crazy to fold Jack 10 offsuit in the cutoff, but in that circumstance, like
Yeah, no, that makes plenty of sense. And just to reiterate what you said about the ace queens of the world,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the reason we're jamming or the reason we're usually raising those is because we're hoping to induce a jam from a lot of the weaker stuff. And here it's like unless we don't want to be all in for our tournament life against a king jack suited or
Yep,
something.
exactly. So like, let's say if we open the ace queen in the cutoff for 17 and the big blind shoves, who covers us? It's just kind of a disaster to call off and be against like deuces, threes, fours, king 10 suited, which all those hands would fold if we shove.
Mhm.
Yeah, like Wes said, we just don't want to be all in for our tournament life when there's a 4 big blind, an 8 big blind, a 10 big blind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we're in 5th place right now, and if
Yep.
we're
I think even
flipping
probably ace king offsuit, which as strong as it is, would probably just be a shove in that
It's
circumstance.
interesting though, because it makes me think is like, is the value there then of even? I mean, obviously you have ace queen and you want to play, right? But like the value of getting what 1.5 big or 2.5 big blinds worth it if all those hands are folding and we're only getting called by better. Do you see what I'm saying? Does that
Yeah.
still
Well,
make
we still
playing?
have to try to pick up some chips. Like, we can't just blind out. So
Right, right,
yeah, those 2.5 big blinds, picking them up once in orbit basically gives us a full orbit.
right.
So yeah, that's not exactly how you think about it, but just picking up one pot in orbit is going to be good enough for you to hang
To keep
around
you
and make
alive,
money.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, let's say a slightly different circumstance where instead of the button having 66, and let's say the under the gun one has a few less chips too. Now there's a lot of like future game going on. Like, whereas if you open and get jammed on and call and win, now you're the chip leader, which just
Mhm.
creates much like a bunch of very good circumstances for you down the road. So then in that case, it might be worth it to just kind of, say screw the exact situation we're in, and I'm playing for future game.
We've kind
So
of
that's I
discussed
guess what
this.
people say when you're playing for the win is it's not really like, yeah, it's more so like that.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So one of the big things of why we're not doing that in this exact spot is because even if we double up, we're going to be
We
behind
still have the chip leader on
2
our direct
chips,
left,
2
which
stacks,
we're
yeah.
still very handcuffed.
Mhm. So the upside is limited and the downside, like we could go out in 9th place, which would be a disaster.
Yep.
So cool. What sticking with that spot for a second, are there going to be some raised folds in your range here? And what are the raised folds versus the raised to where you are actually trying to induce?
Yeah, so I mean, as
This is
far
the
as
17 big blind stack, right?
Correct.
Okay.
yep, so for inducing, aces, kings, queens, jacks, tens, probably like ace king suited, ace queen suited. And then yeah, like our min raise folds are just kind of gonna mirror some of those hands. So like ace 10 offsuit, king queen offsuit, king jack offsuit. Yeah, you're not gonna have a ton of raise folds. Just because that 2 big blinds is pretty costly to us.
Mhm.
We're in possibly, we're in pretty much the worst possible seat we can be in. If we were to the left of the chip leader, now what will happen is the chip leader will open very wide and we'll be able to jam on them because we'll get it through so often.
Mhm.
But yeah, with the chip leader on our left, we're very handcuffed. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that, what you just said there is a good point because I've heard some people talk about how, oh, I have a big stack, so I can gamble. If I raise and they jam, I can call it off lighter. And that's not really the case. It's you get to put pressure on people, but when you even as the big stack, when you face pressure, you can play closer to chip EV, but you shouldn't just call off because you can bust someone. Um,
Yeah, exactly. Like losing those 17 big blinds as the chip leader is still, very important for them because then now they're much closer. The under the gun one with 48 big blinds will pretty much be tied with them. They just don't have nearly as much leverage if they double somebody up.
I have
mhm,
a kind of a question, a follow-up question to that. Say the big stack there, we're still the 17 big blind stack, and the big blind is still, say they are not ICM aware. They're more maybe not ICM aware, but they're like the fuck ICM type, as
Mhm.
we'll occasionally run into in big final tables. Are we going to adjust our ranges to exploit that or tighten up our ranges if we think that our opponent is going to be calling wider? Or are we still sticking with ICM style spots there?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of circumstances that I've come across where people just kind of don't care. Like they're fighting back, like they're not going to be laying down.
Right.
Those circumstances, I might just completely avoid attacking that person and wait till later to kind of play against them. So yeah, I
Okay.
would say yeah, that is kind of an exploit. It's just not, let's say you three bet against them and they're just going to four bet jam like 80% of their range. Like it's obviously not a good spot for us to three bet then as a bluff because yeah. So an exploit then would just be kind of just to have it against those guys.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That when you have it, they will exploit themselves, essentially.
Yes, exactly. Because
Yeah.
they'll be jamming against you or four betting pretty much into your good hands.
God, I'm so excited for the summer, man. This
Yeah.
gets me so pumped. I hope it gets all the listeners pumped as well.
Yeah, me too. And so now button with the 66 big blinds. First, we'll look at a few situations for the button, but first off, let's just say it folds to the button. What is our opening range? Are we ever just ripping it into the 35 big blind, or are we doing anything above a min raise? What's that going to look like?
Yeah, so we're going to be opening very wide.
Mhm.
So yeah, button 66 into the small blind with 15 and the big blind with 35. We're going to be opening very wide. I would say against 35 bigs, you could play a shoving range, but in my experience, it's just not worth it for maybe the slightly extra EV that you might gain. It's just too much, basically. If big blind wakes up, it's a disaster.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would just play min raise or maybe you size up to 2.2 or something. But you also have to be somewhat careful on the button. If the small blind is sharp and knows what's going on, they'll shove on your open quite a bit, knowing that you just are not going to be able to call very often.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would say something around like king five offsuit plus, maybe even more of the offsuit kings.
Yeah.
You're probably going to open like somewhat of like a 60 to 65% range, I would say. So I
Okay.
don't know if people know what that looks like, but
And then in like a normal chip EV spot, it might be like king 8
more like
off or king 7 off.
yeah,
That's the
it's more
bottom.
like 50, 55%. So it's nothing too crazy. You're just going up by about 10%, just kind of really leveraging the situation.
If
Now,
the
it would be much different if the big blind had like 20 bigs. So
I was
small
just gonna
blind
ask that.
15,
Yeah.
yeah, small blind 15, big blind 20. Now you're gonna start playing a bunch of jams. Like 9, 10 suited just gonna be a jam, like make them call off.
Let me follow up to that. At what point
Mhm.
do we start making that adjustment from 35 to 20 big blinds? When does that come into play?
Yeah, I would say at like 25 in this circumstance, you could play some shoves just because you have the four bigs, the eight bigs. Like the big blind's gonna, if they're playing correctly, they're probably gonna call off something like nines plus, ace king plus, and like that's about it. So if they're folding that much, you can just jam a ton and it's going to be very profitable.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a good thing to point out too is, some people might hear that and think, well, if I'm in the big blind, I'll just call off lighter because then they can't do that to me. And so if you're in the big blind and you are facing that jam in this spot,
Mhm.
if you call a lot, if you call wider, yes, you're kind of screwing over the button, but you're screwing over yourself too because you're just going to bust. Even
Yeah,
if you're
exactly. Like calling off with ace jack offsuit, even against like an 8-9 suited, you're only, 58, 60%. So,
yeah.
uh, yeah, that 40% of the time you're going to be out and everyone else is going to ladder up. So,
hmm Which is a disaster when you're still covering most of the table.
yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So sticking with the button here, let's say under the gun opens, and so under the gun, 20 big blinds.
Mhm.
That's going to be a pretty tight range. So what is the button? How's the button going to respond to that?
Yeah, so the button will use kind of some very crappy hands to three bet bluff, maybe some offsuit ace X, maybe maybe even some lower suited ace X that
hmm
doesn't mind getting jammed on. And then, for three bet calling, maybe jacks plus, queens plus, and then like ace king plus. It really kind of depends on the under the gun. Like, are they going to be fighting back with four bet jams? Then you can maybe induce a little wider. If they're very tight, then you have to be careful. But you're also allowed to just kind of call on the button very wide too, because what'll happen is you'll just be playing in position against a guy who's very handcuffed. So on the flop, he'll check very often. You'll be able to just stab small and take it down.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think people like don't call the button enough in those spots too, and they're just kind of centered around three better folding. But yeah, I mean, it sounds weird, but you put a lot of pressure on them by just calling the button and playing in position against them too, because they have to be careful pre-flop and post.
That's interesting to digest. It's like you said, a lot of people will be thinking three bet or just fold here. I think that um that was kind of where my mindset is well. So I see exactly what you mean though. Just we're just applying, the pressure can be applied later, essentially.
Yeah,
I mean,
so like
yeah.
you think about an under the gun opening range here that's very tight. Let's just say, for example, they open ace jack offsuit. You peel whatever you peel on the button, and then it comes like 5, 6, 7. Well, they have absolutely none of that board other than, potentially their overpairs. So you can just stab a bunch and take it down.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Are we going to be floating wider? Or I mean,
Um, yeah, you have to be careful because their range is so strong, right? But I guess most people just won't see bet very much in that circumstance. Once the
okay,
chip leader calls them and then the flop comes out, they
because
won't.
yeah, especially if they're ICM aware, knowing that all
Yeah.
this, yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
they'll just be like, there's actually certain circumstance where you're just supposed to kind of check 100% over to the chip leader in those spots. But
Okay, okay,
Yeah. And so let's say, now is the button we're facing let's say it's the 10 big blind stack, or let's go with the 8 big blind stack, because we had talked about that. Middle position, they come with the 4 big blinds, so they put in half their stack. How are we responding to that as the button?
on the button, um, yeah, so we have to kind of think about how tight that 8 big blind shove is going to be, or like the half stack commit. But you're still going to need to play, even though you cover them, you have 8x their stack. You still have to play pretty tight because of how tight they're playing. So they shove their 8 big blinds on the button. We probably call like ace jack suited, ace queen offsuit, like somewhere around eights plus. Like it's still a very tight range as the chip leader.
Are we calling that 4 bigs? Are we min clicking it just to get them all in?
Yeah, I'd probably min click because they put in the 4, and then we can just make it 8 and put them all in. And then if any action behind us happens, we can deal with that after, basically.
Cool.
So do you have any more theoretical scenarios in this, or hypothetical?
Yeah, I mean,
it could go on for days, obviously.
yeah, there's probably 1 or 2 more, but go ahead.
No, go ahead. Let's get through those. And then what I'm thinking is after that, I'm going to ask him some questions regarding his thoughts going into a big final table before,
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. So 1 more for the button here. Let's say we open and small blind jams 15 bigs. What are we calling off with here? And is this probably going to be closer to chip EV or a little bit tighter?
A little bit tighter, yeah. Again, it definitely depends on the small blind and what their kind of caliber of poker knowledge is. If they know we're opening very wide like we are, then they should still shove like a reasonable amount of hands. So we kind of have to protect ourselves. Like we can't just fold everything because of how wide we're opening. So yeah, you're still gonna call, maybe ace nine suited versus that 15 big blind shove in this circumstance, button versus small blind, because the small blind should still shove like kind of any suited ace, like any Broadway.
Yep.
So yeah, you still have to call some hands, right? You can't just fold everything. But there's also some circumstances. Let's say I might exploit fold like an ace nine suited in that spot if I think that I have an absolute like command or big edge on that table. Then I'm just kind of saving that 15 big blinds. Nobody knows what I'm folding, so they can't exploit you, right? You could still just have the king six offsuit there.
Yep.
So I think people are scared to make those big folds as exploits sometimes because it looks wrong. But yeah.
That actually makes me think of 1 more question, which I'll just ask now so we don't forget it. If you are on a televised table, is that going to change at all?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I feel like for people who aren't as studied, it might.
Yeah.
just due to the pressure of people
Yeah,
watching
they're
them.
just scared of looking bad or doing
Yeah.
something wrong.
Yeah.
So they might adjust a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I don't really like playing on stream or on live, whatever, just because then people are seeing what you're doing and your exploits you're making and whatnot. But
That's
I
yeah,
would
and
say it doesn't
that's
affect me too much in how I'm playing.
yeah,
Good.
and I think that's, you know, I would say same here. I've only been on one, but the
Mhm.
only reason I asked is because you had said no one will know what you're folding. You could just have the king six, and it's like, well, they could
Yeah,
see that you're capable of making that exploit fold,
right.
and so
Yeah, it
cool.
kind of goes like I've considered streaming on Twitch or YouTube videos, whatever, in the past, and I decided against it just because I don't want people to know how psycho I am, how crazy I am.
Yeah, yeah,
uh, I'm, off topic. I'm assuming though, now that you're gonna have your face posted on the wall, people are going to know you're a lot more capable this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be careful with what kind of bluffs and whatnot I'm running this summer, and see how people are adjusting against me because I feel like last summer I was able to kind of get away with murder quite a bit. So
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's something you'll just have to consider when making an extra, variable you'll consider when making a move. So
yep, exactly. I'll probably just have it all summer. So if I put chips in on the
that's
river, I
good.
have it.
That's good to put out there for people to
yeah.
hear.
Yep, exactly.
I call that bluff, by the way.
All right, so we'll wrap up here. The last, well, no, still got two more.
Keep rolling,
We'll
baby.
do
Let's
it
go.
quick. So
We're in no rush.
yeah, under the gun, 20 big blinds opens, and then under the gun 48 big blinds. What should that strategy look like?
Yeah, so that strategy is going to be zero calling.
Mhm.
It's going to be three better folds. And you're gonna have to three bet fold some very good hands, basically, as bluffs in a sense. Like ace queen offsuit will just, so under the gun has 20 bigs, they min raise. Under the gun one's gonna go to like 4.5 big blinds, putting a lot of pressure on their open, and then folding versus a jam with most of that range. But yeah, you can still three bet call like jacks plus and ace king plus pretty much. And then anything else, like let's say king jack suited in that example is just pretty much a three bet fold as a bluff. Like king
Mhm.
queen suited just three bet folds as a bluff. So it's much different than normal chippy V poker where king queen suited normally for 20 bigs would just jam or call, doesn't want to get jammed on and have to fold. But yeah, you just kind of have to use some very good hands as three bet folds, and that's just kind of what's correct. So
Yeah, it's important to note that with these stack sizes, it's mainly because of the final table pressure. You can three bet really small,
yep.
and it still applies a ton of pressure.
Yeah, so going back to the under the gun, once you open and get three bet to 4.5 big blinds, now the strategy for them is basically no calling as well. So that's why
Yep.
you kind of don't really see as many flops on final tables, like because people kind of know that it's more of a pre-flop game once you get to that stage. Obviously, if stacks are very deep, there's still plenty of post-flop. But in this circumstance where the average stack is like 25, 30 bigs, there's not going to be much post-flop going on, which sucks, but it
Yeah.
is what it is.
So for under the gun, what would the jams be, and what are like the what's the top end of the folding range?
Yeah, so in that circumstance, like even ace queen offsuit will just min raise and then it gets three bet super small and it's pretty much just supposed to fold.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, you'll probably pretty much just go in with like ace king plus um tens or jacks plus. Like even tens is pretty dicey.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then if you think they're very capable, if they're overdoing it, then you can start sticking it in with ace five suited, right? If you think they don't have enough calls and they're just three bet folding there every time, you can exploit them by bluffing. So
Here's a thought too. When you said tens versus jacks,
mhm.
if king jack suited is one of the hands that under the gun one is using as a bluff, is it better to jam tens than jacks as under the gun?
Yeah, those spots are always really tricky. Because they'll still also use hands like king 10 suited potentially and ace 10
Sure.
suited. So there's always going to be some sort of removal. But from what I've seen, tens is usually not very good on a final table. Like if let's say the stacks were reversed, 48 big blinds opens,
Mhm.
and then let's say you have 25 big blinds. I've seen situations where tens is just a pure fold. Like it's
Yep.
insane because because the opener, most of their raised folds have a 10 in them. So you don't want 10s.
Is that somewhat similar to Koo's spot? I feel like I remember at the Venom final table, he folded 10s. I don't remember exactly what the action was, but it's
Yeah, I think
something.
it was a raise and a 3-bet. So much easier to fold 10s, when
Yeah.
you're coming in for a cold 4. But
Yep.
yeah, I think he asked me later on, and I said, yeah, I just think it's pretty
And I mean,
cold.
intuitively, it seems like that's the right play as well.
Yep. Yeah, those spots where it goes raise 3-bet, and now you're cold coming in with the 4-bet. Those spots you're just insanely tight. Like
Yeah.
queens is even just usually close.
Okay. That's important, I think, for people to note as well. With it, considering the action in front of you and all the ICM
Yep.
implications.
Yeah, I think I would just fold jacks without even thinking twice about it in those spots, unless
Lovely.
the 3-better is very, very aggressive or something. Then
Okay.
The last one I'm going to ask is, so I know we just discussed, or you just said that there's not going to be a lot of post flop play. The one spot where there is there's an open folds to the big blind. So as big blind, what is your defending range going to look like? Let's just say versus under the gun 1, and then versus cutoff and button, which I suppose are 2 very different ranges as well.
yeah, so against under the gun 1, it depends on their open size, the size of the ante. These things all kind of matter. But when you're covered, you have to defend pretty tight. Like you're gonna fold hands like 10-9 offsuit that normally you would just be an easy defend.
Yep.
You just
What-
don't want to, if under the gun 1 is good, they're gonna be attacking you pretty hard post flop. Like they might use some bigger flop sizings. They might just barrel the turn 100%. And unless you have a very strong hand, it's going to be hard to deal with. So that's why you play so tight pre-flop when you're covered.
I know a lot of, in non-ICM situations, we're defending almost the entirety of our suited range here. Does that, in this specific scenario, are we, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
you're going to
assuming
fold a
also.
lot of your worst suited hands in this circumstance covered. Like, you probably only defend like the connected ones. So 9-4 suited, 9-3 suited, 9-2 suited out, 9-5 suited, connected now. So maybe you defend that one. But in this exact extreme circumstance where there's the 4 and the 8 big blinds, maybe you need like 9-6, 9-7 suited even. So yeah, you have to, every little stack difference makes it changes something, but it's hard to have it perfect. You just do your best guessing.
Yeah.
Based on what you
That
know.
makes a lot of sense.
And then what about against the cutoff who has 17 bigs? So who will have a much tighter opening range? Who we cover, which is a good thing, but who's also going to be pretty strong.
Yeah, so that tight opening range can kind of work against them because you know exactly what their range looks like. So on certain boards, you could just kind of go crazy and attack them.
Yeah, like you'll defend
a lot wider covering because they can't bust you. But yeah, you do have to be careful because their range is so tight. So you will still fold some of those like bad suited hands or like 10-8 offsuit you'll fold. But yeah.
Okay. All right.
Awesome. I could keep firing off these questions forever. This is fun.
I think
you got some more. Yeah, you had some questions too, Max.
Yeah, and before I ask that question, I just want to kind of iterate on why we're going about this episode the way we are. And it's these theoretical situations. Essentially, it's it's not a real scenario. It's just kind of explaining to you guys how we think through the process as we come into it. So, it depends on the range and stuff like that, but we're thinking, we just wanted to show you our mindset as we go through these different scenarios. Going backwards now, Ian, it's the World Series of Poker, 2027, doesn't matter. You're in an $800 WSOP event with a bracelet up top. There's 2,498 entries, just random number. You're entering into the final table. And the reason I'm saying it's an 800 is because they're going to have more of a wide range of type of players in this type of an event. A lot more recreational players. Say your student, most of our listeners know you're a coach. Say your student reaches out to you pre-final table and they have no ICM awareness at that point. They're a pretty new player. In layman terms, what kind of tips are you going to give them to perform their best at this final table?
Good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess it definitely depends on the situation they're in. If they're
any scenario, I mean, whether they're middle stack, small stack, big stack, whatever way you want to take it.
I
Yeah,
guess
so I guess
what
let's just
questions would you ask them? Maybe is the way to look at it.
sure, yeah. I would try to get an idea of, how they're thinking about blind versus blind. I would try to get an idea of their opening ranges. What hands they think they can three bet call versus different stack sizes. I would kind of try to also get the idea of what hands they should be three bet folding or attacking people with, who they should be attacking, who they should be avoiding. That's all kind of things I think we would talk about. As the big stack, I would tell them that they should be opening a lot and folding versus three bets quite a bit. Jamming on people whenever they can. Like let's say folds around you in the small blind, you cover them, they have 15 bigs, you should just be jamming a ton, right? Because they're not going to be able to call off at all. And some people even call off tighter than they're supposed to. So
Okay. All right. So you're essentially just going to be having them exploit ICM in that scenario, or trying to have them do that.
yeah, or like if they're a middling stack, I'm going to tell them like, that's the toughest situation to be in, but you can still chip up by attacking the chip leader. They're very wide opens. They're gonna have to fold a lot versus your three bets. There's also circumstances where, like, let's say the chip leader folds and you're second in chips. Now you're in a sense the chip leader for that hand, if that makes sense. Like once the chip leader folds, now it's your table.
Yep.
So
That
yeah,
makes sense.
now you kind of act as the chip leader if you're on their left and they folded already.
To the newer players, can you explain why being the middle stack is the hardest to play?
Yeah, it's because you don't want to tangle with the big stack who's going to be in there playing a lot of hands. And then there's so many short stacks that you basically want to outlast to make money.
Yeah. So you're just kind of being your goal is to not get busted by the big stacks, but also to outlast the smaller stacks.
Yep, like you're still playing for the win, but you're almost like in a sense delaying playing for the win. Like let's say you have 35 big blinds, the chip leader has 90 big blinds, and then there's a bunch of 10 big blind stacks. You're still going to try to win the tournament, but you're going to try to do it later after you've laddered up and made money.
Okay. All right. So is it fair to say that the middle stacks are going to be playing more of an ABC strategy, more just kind of like basic baseline strategy, not trying
Yeah,
to get out of
I
line too
would
much?
say that's a fair statement. Yeah. It
Okay.
depends who it is, though, right? Against a very experienced, good player who's been there millions of times, that middling stack is going to attack the chip leader because they know what they'd be doing as a chip leader. And if the chip leader doesn't fight back, they can continue to chip up on that person. So,
Well, Ian, I appreciate the insight on all that stuff. I'm actually, one of my favorite things to do on these interview slash these episodes where we get deep into strategy with people that I have, great respect for. I'm going to go back and listen to it myself. It's a lot. It's funny as the podcast host. In the moment, I'm oftentimes thinking of the next question or trying to pursue the conversation better. But when after we record, I go back and listen to it so I can actually digest it a lot more. So I look forward to that. We have some Discord questions for you. I know we got about 15 minutes left with you on here. You got some coaching to do today?
I'm gonna do some study with the guy I talked about. We're gonna look at some mixed game stuff and kind
I
of get
love
me.
that.
More.
Well, my first question, and this is from me. What mixed game are you looking forward to most?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say probably like the triple draw. I find the triple draw pretty fascinating. Whether that's limit or no limit triple draw, I think those games are pretty fun.
Okay.
Definitely not my best game right now, though. I would say like maybe my best mixed game would be Raz or Stud.
Okay. Okay. We had Wes and I had the opportunity to play some of those games recently at one of our home games. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Needless to say, I was pretty ass, but
I think most of us were.
yeah. I slapped Wes around quite a bit. It felt really good.
Hey, I won like $50 that night.
I won 80
awesome.
I won $80. We're both up hundreds at one point. It's funny because it makes it sound like a super small stakes game. Not that it was, but
I mean, it was low. The hold'em we played was only 1-2.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Anyways.
That's high stakes for me, brother. Okay, next question. Apart from your, actually, no, I'm going to separate. I'm going to change this question. What event besides the main event this year do you want to win the most?
The PLO 6 max for sure. So I got third in the 3K PLO 6 max, and I want vengeance. I want to go win it now.
I love that. I actually
I
remember.
think they
Yeah.
added a couple PLO events as well this summer, so I'm looking forward to those a lot.
I remember last year I was in between on break of a tournament and I scooped in the room and I just saw you sitting there battling with the best of them and it's awesome to see you in there, man. I love that. You just belong there. I noticed also that you recently took part in the Poker Go Studio PLO series. I didn't even
Yep.
know you were in that, but it looks like you had some good results there. How was that experience?
Oh yeah, it was good. Those are some of the people playing were what I would say are the best PLO players in the world. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I had some kind of heartbreaking runs, where you're in such a good situation to do very well, maybe top three, and then something happens, but that's how it goes. Yeah, I played very well, and yeah, had some good runs to show for it.
Right on. So let's get to some Discord questions.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so maybe all three of us can chime in on this one, but John Coffin asks, how does someone mentally prepare to play a full schedule at the WSOP? What would you tell someone who's playing their first full schedule or at least playing for their first extended
I'm
break?
gonna take the initiative on this one,
Okay.
and that's spend as much time with your significant other as possible beforehand.
There you go.
Yeah, I agree. Pretty much, yeah. It sucks because there's an online series, so I have been playing still a little bit online, but I just went on a camping trip this past weekend with 11, 12 of my close friends. So yeah, just kind of doing things that aren't poker is how I get prepared. And then, of course, there's a little, like I said, right after this, I'm going to do some studying in preparation. But yeah, spend time with family, friends. Don't be afraid to take breaks if you feel burnt out playing a full schedule. Whether that break is like a full day or whether you just go and late register that day, you take maybe a half day break. Yeah, just kind of listen to your body and
Yeah,
take it from
well
there.
put.
Yeah.
What do
La-
you got, Wes, on
Yeah,
that?
last thing I would add, two things. Maybe if you have some smaller events, pick one or two to late reg.
Mhm.
You don't need to get in every tournament from the absolute beginning. And then the other thing for me is, and this is a lot easier if you have like an Airbnb apartment type of thing, but have some groceries, make some food at home. You'll save some money. It'll be healthier. And then have like some snacks in your backpack. So you've always got something. You're always going to pay a little extra if you're buying snacks or buying dinners
Yep.
in Vegas, which,
It adds
you're,
up quickly, especially if you're there an entire summer. I'll be getting groceries the first night and making, little meal preps for that WSOP. So
yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, like there's a meal company that we order from every summer. Yeah, it's like good healthy food, good portions. So yeah, we'll be doing that again this summer.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
actually
that
curious about that. I might want to.
yeah, reach out. Yeah, definitely. And then tell me about it because I'm curious as well. I mean, health is very important while you're out there. You're sitting alone is already very unhealthy, and sitting for those amount that extended a period of time every single day will wear on
Yeah,
your body.
bring a seat cushion, get up and stretch in between hands. Like, yeah. Bring
Crucial,
water,
crucial.
have a lot of water.
Yeah, a lot of water. That's another good one.
Yeah, get outside, get some fresh air, and sit inside all day can wear on the mental a lot as well. Um, Moving on to the next question, R. Peyton from our Discord. He says he's played Vegas tournaments in the past, but never at the World Series of Poker. What's the big difference between World Series of Poker events, and then should he expect something completely different from the normal tournaments he plays, except for obviously the mass amount of numbers in the tournament?
Yeah, I would say that's kind of the main thing what Max just said is the tournaments are just a lot bigger in terms of people. You have to get through big fields, but it doesn't make that much of a difference, right? You're still gonna have, X amount of people that bust out every day and 2 3 day tournaments. But yeah, just kind of the main difference is the atmosphere in there. Everybody's excited to play. There's people from all around the world. Just enjoy it, be excited. It's very cool. So
Yeah. A couple of these other questions, it looks like we've already addressed regarding the online. Jay Chard asked about the online schedule and your thoughts on it. Then Chris Jones about the run at repeating player of the year. Mr. Boss Hog 88, Big Al, given the spotlight you're in, you're already very established prior to the World Series of Poker player of the year. But do you like the conversations from people while playing? Does it affect your poker process in game when people want to talk?
um I'm not a big talker at the table. I prefer to just kind of lock in and pay attention, and I'm not on my phone much either. I would say last summer, when it was kind of nearing the end of the summer where I was leading the player of the year, very likely going to win it, and people were asking about it. It actually did kind of change how I played a little bit because people knew that I was having good results, so I was probably aggressive. I think I actually passed up on a few bluffs just because it was recently talked about at the table that I was like the player of the year.
Ah,
Spots I normally would have taken. So yeah, it does change things for sure.
being able to adapt that quickly is super important. I think you kind of nailed that. That's great.
Um, Chris Jones asks, which conversation topics make you play your worst? That's a follow-up to that last question.
Which conversation topics make you play your worst?
Yeah. You can lie about this one. That might be the
Yeah, I don't know. I guess
tricky part.
maybe a topic that would frustrate me would take me off my game, but I don't know. I
S
would say I'm a hard guy to
Yeah,
irritate
to
or
frustrate,
to
yeah.
annoy.
Say you
So
got that one random guy at your table who thinks he's a know-it-all and starts giving coaching advice that's
yeah.
incorrect, and you're
Yeah,
just
I would say
tilting because you're just
people
like,
should
shut
just
the f.
not talk strategy at the table. It's always just it's never good, really.
I
Yeah.
agree with that. It's a little cringy. Okay, I like this question because we don't talk about, we haven't talked about this, and I don't think a lot of people may ask you this question, but
Mhm.
from Pagogo, he's actually our Discord moderator.
Mm.
He asked the question, "What would you say is the weakest part of your game?"
The weakest part of my game. Hmm.
Do you have any leaks that you feel like you've noticed lately that you've been focusing on for in preparation for the World Series of Poker?
Good
And maybe
question.
He's John.
and maybe you don't
Oh,
wanna
he's a
share.
god.
Yeah, maybe
Or maybe you
No,
don't wanna
I
share.
you know I you know I guess I would say that since I work so hard at this game, like, let's say, for example, if I play an online session, which tomorrow I'll play online, I'll probably play between 2 and 3,000 hands, and I will mark it's usually around 10% of those hands for review of spots that I'm unsure of. So yeah, there's spots that I'm unsure of all the time, like constantly, different spots coming up. Um, but I guess I feel super confident in most areas in my game because I've worked so hard at it. So yeah, like I'll just kind of study those 200 hands after the session or before my next session and keep learning. Like there's a spot that came up the other day, like a three-way spot. I'm like, oh, you do a bunch of bleeding from this spot. Like I never knew that before.
Okay. I think
actually,
it's a great answer, honestly.
quick side note, how do you study multi-way spots post-flop?
Prometheus Poker
Okay,
is what I'm
cool.
using right now. Yeah, I
Nice.
think they have 20, 40, 60, 100 big blinds, and then quite a few different positions. Yeah, it's a great program, and I think it's like fairly affordable as well. So
That's incredible because I know multi-way spots are probably the most difficult to navigate.
yeah, absolutely. It's just kind of uncharted territories because you don't know what people are doing, right? People
Right.
could
Yeah.
be doing something completely different than what a solver may suggest. So
And
That makes
especially
sense.
in, most of our listeners and us too, will be playing in a lot of the lower to mid buy-in stuff at the series, and you'll see a lot of multi-way spots,
yep,
especially early
three
on.
to five way spots on the flop where you just kind of have to make a good hand.
Yes, that's a lot of it.
One
Um,
more question from Discord here.
yeah. So this one is so for you being a poker coach, what is the most common theme that you see in your students as far as their weaknesses and yeah, how do
Yeah,
you help them
yeah. The
improve
the
there?
thing I would say, um, maybe it's not even necessarily the most common theme, but it is common, and I would say it's the most important thing for me to focus on is people getting value with their hands.
Mhm.
So like getting maximum value in spots where other people might only get 40% of the value that they're getting, and then also being able to kind of being able to know how to bluff. Like a lot of people are capable of bluffing. They just don't know which hands to use and how to bluff. So that's usually something I like to focus on as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you guys are looking to improve your bluff game and get more value, make sure to send Ian a message on Twitter and get some coaching from this guy.
I feel like we got a mini session here. We got some free content.
This is, yeah. I mean,
This is good.
I mean, do I owe you money after this?
Absolutely not.
No, it's incredible, the insight, and it definitely lights a fire under my ass getting ready, going for the World Series of Poker here. I mean, that's the end of our questions from Discord. Going over ICM spots, super crucial. Thank you again for coming on and doing that. What's going on with you this summer? You're playing a full schedule. Gonna potentially fight for Player of the Year depending on how kind of things start off from the get-go. Does that seem right?
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, I'll be playing a full schedule. I didn't take any days off last summer. I honestly kind of doubt I will take any days off this summer. However, if the Timberwolves make the NBA Finals, I think I'm gonna absolutely have to fly home and go to a game, because when else am I gonna be able to do that?
Yeah, probably never. So, well,
yeah,
maybe with
exactly.
Ant now that'll change, but
Right.
It is exciting. Yeah. Game 1 is tonight as we're recording.
Yeah, I'll actually be there tonight, so I'm looking forward to that. It's
That's awesome.
It's gonna be insane in there.
Ian, again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us tonight, or today, whatever time it is. Oh God, here we go again. I look forward to seeing you at the World Series of Poker. I'll make sure to stop by and say hi if I see you. You know what I'm hoping most is that we both get to sweat each other at final tables.
Yeah,
You at mine,
absolutely.
mine at yours,
That would
and then
be
vice
sick.
versa at Wes's.
Yeah.
We won't leave Wes out of this one.
That's my thought.
We're just here. We're here to fire away. Wes and I got an Airbnb for the entire summer, pretty much. So, if you're looking to do lunch on a day off or something, hopefully we can swing that and just enjoy some of our time off while we're in Vegas.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll connect for sure.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Wes, you got any last thoughts?
No, looking forward to it. We'll see you out there in about a week, and good luck.
For sure. And one last thing I just want to touch on here, for our Discord, or not for our Discord members, but for people listening, please become a Discord member. Again, we have a channel in there where you can hop in and ask, people we have on the podcast any kind of questions. I get in there and make sure to let you guys know who we have on, and if you have any questions for them. So it's a great place to not only chat with other poker players, but to get your questions heard on the pod. You can find that at Deuce Nukem on Twitter. The never expiring link pinned right there at the top. Just hop in. We have 170 deep now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's growing and growing. Yeah, man. And Ian's in there as well. So appreciate you hopping in there. Guys, have a great day, morning, night. Wes gets pissed every time I say it, so it's the only reason I continue to do it. Ian, enjoy your coaching session. Have fun at the Timberwolves game tonight, and we will see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.